Ricky Ponting joins us on this week's Sky Cricket podcast. We're recording on the morning of what will be the last day of the series, so we don't know the outcome of the Test match yet, but Sri Lanka, as we're recording, need 125 runs to win. So we're not going to talk about the Test because we don't know what's going to happen, but welcome back to the Oval, first of all. Some happy memories, some not so happy memories, but time here as a Surrey player.
Yep.
4 Ashes series that you came on. How many defeats here? 2 defeats? 1 rained off, and 1 victory.
You know better than me, yeah. Well, we won 2001, didn't we? 97, we got bowled out late. Tough as on a wicket that actually turned. That was one of the traits here, wasn't it, back in the day? At the end of Test matches, it did turn quite a lot. So 97, we weren't good enough at the end of that. But I think we're a long way up, weren't we, coming into the last game here. 2001, the famous Steve Waugh game. You're batting on one leg, and I think he got back up in about 2 weeks from a torn calf. Got himself back up to play that game, and I think we're all a bit edgy that it would probably go again, but knowing Stephen, he wasn't going to miss a Test match even on one leg. So, that one. 2005, just the most disappointing way an Ashes series could ever end. You know, we were obviously chasing runs to retain the Ashes, not actually win it, but retain the Ashes, and then just got to the point where it became, very dark and unplayable. And
there was a little book written about that, and it was called "Is It Cowardly to Pray for Rain?" Because of course all the England supporters were desperate for a bit of bad weather.
And the hardest part for that for me was actually having to almost feel like you were surrendering, going in, and the umpires came in and said it's too dark, we can't play anymore. So then I had to go in the England room and find Varney and shake his hand and say congratulations, you've won the Ashes. So that was the hardest part of that, but what an incredible series that was.
Yeah.
I've got so many great memories from that series, even though it's one that we lost. Just to see what effect an Ashes series or a cricket series can have on a country. To be here and see six pages of the newspaper front and back page only talking about cricket. To not be able to get into certain venues on the last day of a game because people were just flooding in to
Old
try.
Trafford,
Old
particularly.
Trafford, well, I think
when you played that great innings.
Yeah, that last day, I think I've told this story before. Our bus trip on the way to the ground, we actually turned 4 different ways to try and get into the ground, and we couldn't even get our team bus in. So I think we ended up parking somewhere up the road, getting out and walking in to get into the ground. And then, as that day went on, we saw all these helicopter shots down over Old Trafford, and just the roads around it completely congested with people trying to get in. So. Great memories there of 2005 and
you left out your spinner here in 2009.
Yeah, coming here for another must-win game. Left out the spinner, lost the toss, and then I think it was the first over or the second over, I saw one of the fast bowlers. The ball actually broke the surface, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen here?
You played. Moving it on. You played county cricket here at the Oval. Did you enjoy your time over here?
Loved it. It's one of the regrets I probably have. I mean, I know I couldn't have physically done it, but I would have loved to have played more county cricket. I had a stint at Somerset, I think in 2001, like somewhere early there. Jamie Cox was captain down there at the time, and I don't know if he was going for a break or Somerset was sending him off for a break to try and free up a couple of months for me to go down there. But loved my time there, and then right at the back end of my career. So my last ever first class game was out here. My last ever first class innings was for Surrey right here at the Oval, and I only had about 6 weeks, I think. But the feel you got around this club was like I've been there forever. They actually made me a cap player in my last ever first class game. I had no idea about it. Stewie came up to me and big presentation happening in the middle of the Oval. Just before my last first class game. So that was pretty. That was pretty cool. But I loved the camaraderie that's created around county cricket because you just in each other's pockets, 24/7. Probably to certain people's detriment, to be honest. Probably spending too much time together and too much time at the ground. But I love that because I knew I was only there for a short time. So, getting
interesting you say that because it's often been the criticism of county cricket from those who've played their career in Sheffield Shield cricket, for example. The criticism always is. County cricket, because we play so much, there's not quite the hunger sometimes that maybe cricketers in Sheffield Shield have had because you play fewer games and therefore there's a bit more on every game. But you're saying actually you enjoyed that sense of county.
Well, I was only here for a couple of months.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, I was still nice and fresh at the end of 2 months. Where the guys that are doing it season on season, you could see that it would be hard work. But I think if you look You know, I think any Australian that's come here is really enjoyed it. There's been great Australian pros.
Oh, we had two. We had Alan Border and Mark Waugh. I can tell you the things we learnt from those two, and they learnt. You know, I could not think of two better overseas pros that we had at Essex. Absolutely magnificent, the pair of them.
Yeah, even you think of some of the guys now, like I was talking about a guy called Michael Klinger that, you know, back in his career spent a lot of time at, was it Gloucester?
Gloucester,
Someone like Cameron Bancroft even now. Like, these are still relatively young Aussie players. Marnus, there's another really good example. Michael Nasser. These guys that are here every year just absolutely loving it. And as you say, they're loving it, but I'm sure a lot of the younger county players are learning a lot from them as well.
England's team has changed a little bit. So you were here last year, obviously, for the Ashes, commentating with us. There's been quite a lot of turnover in England's team, and a couple of players who, seems to me at least, are going to be pretty central to the England Test team moving forward, and therefore likely to be in Australia in 16 months' time or wherever it is. Jamie Smith and Gus Atkinson. What have you made of them from what you've seen, and their chances of being successful in somewhere like Australia?
Look, I think they've both got great chances of success, and I think, you know, we were talking about it yesterday, this big group of 85-mile-an-hour plus bowlers that England are putting together, I can't help but think that that's with the National Series in mind. You know, going to Australia, flatter pitches, kookaburra ball, you know, you need that airspeed. Probably in the last couple of tours to Australia, England probably haven't had that, as you know, with Archer not being there, and they've been probably a little bit weak in that area, if you like. So it seems to me that they're sort of, what they're doing now selection-wise probably has had a bit of an eye for the future as well, especially with Australia in mind. So like, I think Atkinson looks like a terrific cricketer. You know, lively pace, hits the deck hard, the sort of bowler you need in Australia. Can obviously hold the bat. And Jamie Smith, well, you know,
Echoes of Gilchrist a little bit yesterday.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And no doubt the reason that they've picked him. You know, I said before the day one here that they've made some gutsy calls as well. I reckon it's not just about. Yes, it's one thing to identify talent and want to get them in, but sometimes you just can't get them in. You know, someone like Ben Folkes must feel like, you know, never put a foot wrong, yet he's out of the side because of what they feel they need in that specific role from the batting side of things. And we saw it yesterday. I mean, we saw how dangerous and how good he can be, and he'll be a 3-format player as well, only for a long time. And he first popped up on my radar looking at potential middle order batsman for the Big Bash. So for not this draft just gone, but the one before, he was just starting to make some waves here in English domestic cricket, and he fitted exactly what we needed. But having spoken to Keezy thought he might have been picked in some of the white ball tours at the end of last year and might have overlapped with the BBL. So we didn't pick him up then, but he's been on the radar for a long time, and he proved to me yesterday just how good he is.
What about Joe Root? I saw you celebrating twice in this game when he was out because you're obviously concerned that he's going to go past you soon.
Every time someone mentions his name, I've still got this thing in my head about last Ashes series. I think we're at Edgbaston, and it was day 2 or day 3, and I went out he got the 100 first day, right? And I went out and shook his hand and said, "Well played." He looked at me and said, "That's the first time you've ever said anything." I'm like, so he's obviously listening. Like, I'm listening into commentary. I mustn't have given him any compliments at all. And I said, basically, what are you talking about? I said, you've got 10,000 runs. I think I've had plenty of good things to say about you through your career. No, but just the start.
He will go past you?
Of course. There's a chance of going past Satch. And what is he now? 12,000.
Yeah, we worked out at his current rate, which he scores about something like 85 runs a game, and that the amount England are playing, which is about a dozen tests a year, he probably needs about 4 years to go.
Any reason he wouldn't? He hasn't quite done it in Australia. You know, Ath mentions that little shot that he plays off the back foot and bouncier pitches. He's fine in Australia, but he hasn't done it as he does in the other parts of the world.
He gets starts and scores, just hasn't got those big hundreds. And that, you know, for the first 10, what's he been playing? 10 or 12 years. For the first 8 or 9 years of his career, that was what everyone said all around the world, wasn't it? About the conversion rate was the thing that was down. It's actually flipped the other way now. You know, and that's just got to be a mental thing for him. I can't find any other reason why it's just not a mental thing for him in Australia either. He's got the all-round game. I mean, and it's not like he gets out every time playing that shot, trying to force off the back foot or run down to third man. But no, he's a class player, always has been. And someone asked me the other day, has he got, I think you in commentary, you know, has he got better, or is it that 32, 33 age where batsmen reach their peak? I don't think, you don't get better skill-wise, you just work the game out better. You just work scenarios and situations out better and know how to deal with them better. And I think that's with him, 1700s in the last 3 years, he's worked out that mental bridge or barricade that he might have. He's been able to break that down and get across the line more often than not.
Do we make too much of the Ashes? Last year, virtually every selection, every chat from Rob Key and captains Ben Stokes is about the Ashes in Australia. What about Australia? What do they think of it? And do they do similar things when they're coming here? Or is it just another series? We'll look after that when it comes about.
I think we think about it a lot as well. I mean, you think of England's selections for the Indian tour, I thought were outstanding as well. So that wasn't just about the Ashes. Bashir, Hartley, these sort of guys. So they are thinking about players they need for different situations and different conditions. But look, we all know what Ashes cricket means to all of us, and probably what it means to the world game, to be honest. So I don't think we overthink it. I think, but you do need a good deal of preparation. It does come around quicker than you think. There's 4 years between the home series, but we're only 14 months away now from the next one, and you need to be well planned and organised. So you can't. I don't think you can give enough time to thinking about that series and making sure you've got the right players ready for it.
Aussies are here. White ball series coming up, ODIs and T20s. Some new names for English viewers who won't necessarily have seen some of the players that are here. So I was looking down the list. Cooper Connolly, Xavier Bartlett, Aaron Hardy, Jake Fraser McGurk. Just run the rule over.
Cooper Connolly, he might be 19 or 20 years of age now. Left arm off spinner, left-handed batsman. Actually won the BBL final for the Perth Scorchers 2 seasons ago. As a kid, went in at maybe number 7, number 8. They needed 45 off 3 overs, and he pretty much got them all by himself. An incredible hitting display from a young kid that just, that reckless abandon, didn't care, just went out and saw it and hit it and won the game for them single-handedly. So I saw someone say something the other day about someone from WA making batting comparisons with Sean Marsh with him. We haven't seen that yet, but apparently there's that sort of talent there. He's a bit of a grommet. He's a bit of a little surfy kid. He's got the long blonde hair, and he'll always have a hoodie on at training and all that sort of thing. He's a bit of a cool cat at the moment, but the international game might bring that out of him pretty quickly. Aaron Hardy is another Western Australian, tall, probably 6'4", all-rounder, top order batsman, predominantly in first-class cricket and Big Bash. Has captained the Scorchers the last couple of years. Can open the bowling, can shape the new ball at. He's 130 probably with his bowling set, but a very dynamic, typical Perth player. Hits the ball really well, square of the wicket, gets inside, uses the pace and bounce pretty well. But he's a big, strong guy. He's almost a Cameron Green sort of. Probably not quite as talented as Green. Certainly not as quick with the ball, but he'll play that sort of role for Australia. Xavier Bartlett sort of burst onto the scene. One-day cricket in Australia last summer before against the West Indies. He's a Queenslander. So growing up in Brisbane, nice swing bowler. Picked up a yard of pace last year. He's probably just under 140 kilometres an hour. Tall, strong guy, bustles in, shapes the ball. I think he's got a bit of a future in all formats for Australia. And Jake Fraser McGurk,
David Warner replacement.
He hasn't been yet. He hasn't set the international scene on fire yet, but he will. I mean, I've had an eye on him for a few years now. Obviously, seeing him in the Big Bash and some of the little cameos he's played there. We got him to Delhi last year in the IPL, and some of the things he did there were just unbelievable. And he hits the ball as cleanly and as hard, I think, as anyone I've ever seen. And I don't know if he might be slightly taller than me. he's not a big bloke. He might be slightly taller, but he's one of those guys. You guys would have seen him as well. You just get around people, and they're just born cricketers. Like if you look at him, look at his physique, and you shake his hands. He's got big, strong hands and strong forearms, and he's a natural cricketer. You've probably seen him in the field as well. He's a gun in the field. He needs a bit of refinement with his batting. He's very much. He almost stands like a baseball on there all the time, and he's got very much this, almost like a single hitting plane that he's got to continually keep working on to open up different areas of the ground. That was the only thing that I worked on with him at Delhi last season, was just to don't half the, don't cut the ground in half and think about you can only hit the ball down here. So I just had him setting up slightly differently and allowing him to be able to hit the ball over mid-off and over extra cover and things like that. But I think he is a bit like you said a Warner replacement. Where they are at about the same age is very similar. So Davey sort of bursting onto the scene in the T20 game. No one really thought that he could turn himself into a test match batsman, let alone a test match opener. But I think when you've got that much ball striking talent and skill, I think he can do it. Yeah. So that's going to be Jake's. If he wants to, I'm sure he'll want to. But there are so many other things you can do now domestically and white ball wise that. But I hope he has that dream and want to play Test cricket because I think he could do it.
Well, it's a big Test summer coming up, isn't it, in Australia? You've got India there for 5 Test matches, which is the first time for a long time, and you have to go back right to the early 90s, the last time India played a 5 Test match series in Australia. So that's a measure of the importance of the Border Gavaskar Trophy now. And they're a bit of a bogey team for Australia of late.
Yeah, they've played incredibly well in Australia the last 2 tours. I mean, after not this last tour, the tour before, they got bowled out for 36 in the second innings of a Test match in Adelaide. Kohli then left and went home. It was like, well, they're done. That series gone. Rahane took over and they ended up knocking the Aussies off in that series. And last series, was it? They won a game at the Gabba as well, which just doesn't happen.
So what's been the secret for India? Is it just the quality of the fast bowling? Because obviously I think England have only won 1 Test match in Australia since 2010. India have gone there and won the last 2 series. What's been the secret for them?
I think both. I think their batsmen adapt better now to overseas batting conditions as well. I don't think they're as daunted by, the Gabba or Optus Oval now as they maybe once were. So maybe that's a selection thing. Maybe they don't fear the big stage as much anymore. Like I've always had, for the last 10 years, with it being around the IPL, a lot of their young guys, because they play so much IPL cricket and they're on the big stage all the time, and they're high pressure moments. The IPL for them is like a World Cup game nearly every game. So I don't think they fear those big moments as much anymore. And I think you can see by the way that they play. Their batsmen are all very well. Pujara not being there anymore, but they're all been very aggressive, stroke-making players, and they're not a bit like the way England are playing. They're not scared of failing because they've been there and done it enough that the big stage just doesn't worry them. But their fast bowling depth. I mean, that last series in Australia, they were down to pretty much their 3rd string attack, and still found a way to be able to win. So their depth is great. I think their leadership the last 6 or 7 years has been really strong. Going back to Kohli's start of his captaincy tenure, I think he played a big role in turning their cricket around. Obviously, Dravid being there the last 4 or 5 years as well. I think, as far as influence on a team, someone like that around the team would be great. And they've got star players. I mean, that's the thing.
Can I talk about one of them in Rishabh Pant?
Yeah.
I mean, he was there at the end, winning it for him.
Yeah.
He's someone you know well from Delhi. Last time you were over, he'd had that horror accident, and you were texting him all the time, making sure he's okay. How has that affected him in any way, both as a person, as a cricketer? I mean, he seems to have come back brilliantly from such a horror crash.
It's a remarkable comeback, Nass, honestly. Like if you can even see his leg now, and if you listen to the stories that he tells about what he confronted with when he woke up on the side of the road, having been thrown out of his car 40 metres up the road at 200 kilometres an hour, I mean, even just think about the mental scarring that will come with that. But the physical side of it, the rehab that he went through. I didn't think he'd play last year's IPL, and that's why I was on the phone to him because we have with the auction coming up, we need to know what we've got to do. And right from that, 12 months before that, he said, "Don't worry about me. I'll guarantee you, I'll be right for the IPL." And we thought, okay, well, he'll be able to bat. We might have to manage him, use him as a sub player. Kept every game. One of our leading run scorers, bats number 3 in the World Cup for him, part of a World Cup winning team. I noticed he's just been named back in the Test squad again.
Yeah, he's been named.
It's a remarkable comeback, and look, you've all seen him play, you've heard him in the stump mic. He's an infectious character to have around a group. He loves his cricket. He's a winner. That's what he is. Like he doesn't just play to make a few runs and be out there for the fun of it. He wants to win.
Because you could mistake him with that, couldn't you? Because he plays all the fancy shots or whatever. You could be, he's here just for a good time, as opposed to I'm here to win. You're saying, no, take this bloke seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's he got? He must have 4 or 5 Test hundreds already. He's got about 9 90s as well. Dhoni played for 120 Tests and made 3 or 4 hundreds. This is how good this guy is. This guy's he's a serious cricketer.
Could just push it beyond. You mentioned the Ashes are not far away, so 14 months away. By the time that comes around, I was looking at the age of your big three fast bowlers. So Josh Hazlewood will turn 35 in the Ashes. Mitchell Stark is 35, Stroke 36. I think he would turn 36 at the end of the Ashes, and Pat Cummins 32. Do you think they will still be there leading the attack in the Ashes, given the age of certainly two of them? And B, what's the kind of depth of fast bowling like below that? Because at some stage you'll obviously have to move on from them.
Yeah, there's going to be a really big regeneration in all Australian cricket teams, I think, in the next little bit. It's starting now, I think, with the white ball stuff, and they need to start doing that, and they'll need to start thinking about how they're going to manage these guys properly out of the test environment as well. It might it might happen organically. You would think out of those three that you're talking about, Stark's probably the first one. Yes, age is one thing with him, but the other two have probably played a little bit less cricket as well. Hazlewood and Cummins. I mean, Cummins missed a few years, played a lot of cricket the last few years, obviously, but missed a couple of years in his early days. So they probably only played 60 or 70 test matches each. So I think all three of them will get there. Whether or not all three of them get through all the 5 test matches might be something that they'll think about, rotating in the right conditions and situations or whatever. But the depth is good. Boland and Nasser have been the guys that have been on the fringe most recently. If these three guys hang around that 18 months, those Boland and Nasser might get missed. Guys like Spencer Johnson and Lance Morris and these sort of guys that would probably be the next sort of cabs off the rank there as far as the fast bowling stops.
Are you pretty content that the kind of strength of Australian cricket more generally? We've often held the Sheffield Shield up to be the gold standard first-class competition. Is that still as strong as it ever was?
It's hard to know when you're not around it and physically seeing it.
Day in, day out.
Day in, day out. And I'm sure you guys would have, even when you played, your first couple of years of county cricket, it seemed like, how hard was it?
Yeah.
But then when
it seemed
you played,
like a test match.
Yeah, but then when you played 6 or 7 years, all of a sudden everyone said, the standards dropped off. It's just because of the level that you've played at.
Yeah.
So the guys that are playing it would probably say, yeah, absolutely, it's as strong as ever. One little worry I have got is that New South Wales have been poor for the last couple of years, and we know the breeding ground that New South Wales has been for Australian players. So their Sheffield Shield record, they've only won 1 or 2 games, I think, in the last 2 seasons. But Smith, all the big boys are still there. They don't get the chance to go back. Hard question to answer. I think Sheffield Shield cricket is still a great breeding ground for international players, and we'll keep producing high quality players, no doubt about it.
Sorry, he asked about opening bowlers. What about opening batters? I see Steve Smith went up to open, was tried in that role. Who would you think would be opening the batting in the Ashes? And who would you like to see opening the batting?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I didn't like the move that they made. I didn't like Smith going up there. I mean, I understand they wanted to rush Cameron Green back into the Test team, but sometimes you just have to wait for that slot to come up. Like he missed the Test match because of a little niggle. Headingley last year, Mitchell Marsh comes in and did what he did, and sometimes you just have to wait. If you not give your spot up, you didn't give it up, but when someone comes into your spot and does well, you've got to sit back and wait for your next opportunity. And they were sort of rushing to find a way to get him back in, which meant someone had to go out, and Smith went to the top and opened the batting. Look, I don't know where that's going to end. It's not going to get easier for him. They've got India in Australia coming up, 5 Test matches with that attack. Bumrah, Shami, Siraj, and these guys are not going to be easy work for anyone. So if it's not him, it'll. I mentioned Bancroft earlier. I'm not. They had the opportunity to go back to him when Smith went up. They didn't do that. So whether they, in 18 months' time or 12 months' time, they'll do that again. Matt Renshaw is still someone that's there or thereabouts, and there might be someone else that sort of jumps up in the next 12 months. But that would be the biggest worry, I would think, in Australia right now is high quality opening batters. It's Shield cricket in Australia has been a bit like county cricket has been here early in the season. The wickets are like for openers
doing a bit
hard work.
Yeah.
Every team is chasing to win a Sheffield Shield. So the only way you can do that is by preparing wickets you're going to get results on, and it's had a detrimental effect to top order batters. So the opening batsman will be the one I'm most worried about.
And for you, coaching, commentating, the balance is still there. That's how you see it going forward. Rob Key didn't get in touch about the England white ball rule.
No, not this time. I shut it down before he got there this time. No, it's funny how it seems like any job that comes up, there's 2 or 3 names just get thrown out there straight away. And I don't know how many times I can be on record saying that an international role is not for where I am right now. No, like I must admit, the last 2 years have been a lot busier than I would have wanted. With World Cups, the last 2 years in a row has meant that with IPL, a World Cup, I coached in MLC this year as well, which was a lot of fun. Good tournament, a lot of good players there. I'll continue to do that. That was only sort of 3.5 weeks, so that's not a huge chunk of the year. But that's where I see my life going. It's really hard to walk the competitive side, the feeling you get when you get back into a cricket dressing room again and you're coaching. That's the thing that I've missed the most from not playing. So I've tried to replicate that where I can with getting back into coaching almost immediately after I retired, and it just feels like where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be in a cricket dressing room, working with players and trying to win games of cricket. So I'll keep doing that I don't know if as long as I can, but I'm 50 in a couple of months, so it's not going to last forever. But no, I'm enjoying it for now. I finished up with the Delhi Capitals as well, so there might be a few other opportunities coming in the IPL in the next few weeks. So wait and see what happens.
Watch this space.
Yeah. Final question then. We often have concerns and chat about the way the world game is and how cricket often seems to be devouring itself. There's so much cricket. Opportunities for players are great, obviously, and no one wants to deny opportunities. But do you have any concerns about that, about the structure of where the game is? And do you have any thoughts about, how you see it going? It's a big question to answer.
Yeah, I think we've all got concerns for the Test match game, probably in particular. That's the only format of the game I'm worried about. How to fix it, I don't know. I've sat on committees for years and we've talked about ways of trying to make it work and make it better, but you can't stop these other domestic comps just popping up. They're just coming up everywhere. There was a T10 competition in the Cayman Islands the other week. We finished MLC. Some of the players that I coached flew out the next morning, went straight to Canada to start one there. They finished Canada, they go straight to the Cayman Islands. That's the life now of a professional cricketer that is not playing at the highest level.
Yes, that's been the big change since our time, isn't it? The opportunities for those just below what you might have called the elite level in the past, Test match level. Now those opportunities are unbelievable.
I think the inevitable thing is you're going to see guys, I think, finish international cricket earlier, in their early 30s, and almost have the superannuation fund for a couple of years travelling around the world where, I know I made the decision at the back end of my career to give up T20 international cricket and even not go back to IPLs to give myself the chance to be the best 50-over player with a World Cup coming up.
Flip.
That's going to go the other way, 100%. And you can't begrudge the players of that. It's a short career. When you look at it, you're not in the game for a long time. So, if these opportunities are out there, players are going to take it. I still think there has to be a way where we can somehow bring international player payments closer, like match payment type of thing, and at least try and find some way to incentivise players from the less remunerated countries to want to play international cricket. West Indies, Sri Lanka, obviously New Zealand. We've seen a lot of New Zealand players now not taking up international contracts. Someone like a Finn Allen, who's a terrific young international player, doesn't take up an international contract. So, Trent Bolt's done it the last couple of years. That's the last thing you want to see, but I think it's inevitable.
Great to see you, and we'll catch
You too.
on the road over the next few weeks, in the ODIs and T20s.
Yeah, thanks, gents.